Project program. So Be the Change Project program is where Chief Neil Gang has one-on-one conversations via Zoom with people from all different backgrounds within our community. Within each episode, we will discuss how we as a community can break barriers of racism, stigmas, biases through personal experiences and knowledge. We hope that by highlighting citizens within our community, we can make changes and break barriers. And we hope that this encourages you to be the change. To introduce our chief, Chief Neil Gang has been here as our chief since 2014. One of his philosophies is to build partnerships while engaging the community. And through that, we were able to meet LaJohn Reese. To introduce LaJohn Reese, he is the founder of the organization Motivated to Help Others. This organization is geared towards giving back to communities who have fallen victim to the criminal justice system. LaJohn's mission is to disrupt the cycle of violence and crime within communities by using fitness and wellness programs as a means of promoting personal growth and positive lifestyle changes. So thank you again. I'd like to state one more time, please keep your mics muted. And if you have any questions, please leave that in the comment box and we will get to them afterwards if we have time. And again, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us this morning.
So thank you very much, Natasha, for the lead in this program. And really, I have to admit that this program really was created for one reason, and that was for my friendship with LaJohn. Just was created a great opportunity. How I met LaJohn was really an interesting way. Was we were partnering with Khadijah Phillips with her K Angel series and the books and the education that she's doing with the youth in our community. And obviously it was in tribute of her sister, which was a Richmond police officer who, tragically was killed, Kalia Harper. So with that, they said, you have to meet, our relative. And I think they said cousin, but they said, is LaJohn Reese. And they're pulling up his Google and they're showing me this video. And I just seeing this gentleman speaking with such passion and in his voice and talking about change and talking about the experiences he had. And I go, immediately it hit me that I had to create a program to bring this guy out of the shadows and into the open so people can understand this gentleman and what he's doing for the communities in our area. And really, from the moment, I think LaJohn will agree, the moment we started talking, we hit it off. And this is a brother of mine. And I think that this was before all this civil unrest happened and all these other things that were going on. And I said, you know what, the two of us, one person can change the world, right? Mother Teresa, Martin Luther King can change the world. I can't imagine that two of us, LaJohn and I, can't at least change the local area and what the sentiment is about law enforcement and society and Black Lives Matter. So we talked a little bit about it. And man, I'm just impressed. I'm so excited to be here with my brother today. And I know this is just a launching point. This is not a final destination for us, and we'll continue to move forward and do these type of programs. But really, LaJohn, I'll let you know that Be the Change, really, it was your face in my mind when I started this program. So I'd like to welcome you to the program. And then, I'd like you to start out just kind of telling everybody a little bit about who you are and where you're coming from, and talk about the path that you've traveled. I think people will be really excited to hear your story. Your mic, LaJohn, is there.
Thank you very much, Natasha, for the introduction, as well as Neil Gang. I appreciate you both for welcoming me in today. And also, yes, it's been a long path. When Neil Gang and I first met, it was no civil unrest. Everything was, pretty much calm. It was an introduction of the corona. One day I was coming from work. Him and we had a phone call. I was driving for work, and the phone call was so pleasing and comfortable. As I was driving, we hit it off, and so I knew right then and there that Chief Neil and myself, we would have something positive to build on. So to talk about myself, I was born and raised in Richmond, California. I played sports. My first sport and passion was baseball. I played a few times in Pinot at Fernandez Park, which is Terry Hills, but it's all closely related and things of that nature. So baseball, football was always a passion of mine. And so growing up, I was diagnosed with a heart condition called Wolff Parkinson White. So Wolff Parkinson White, that's when your blood go real fast, heart, and cause heart palpitations. And so that was around 13, 14 years old. And at this time, I was doing pretty good in school. But a kid who's being told that they can no longer live out their passions or their dreams, it plays a major role on their psyche and then on a mental state. And it did mine. It was a challenging situation. And so at that particular time, me being frustrated and not being able to play sports, and what we see a lot of kids do, children do, or adolescents today, is that we veer off and take a left turn. And that's what I did. I took a left turn. I allowed my grades to fail, to fall from A's and B's to a C average in school. I was going to Crespi Junior High and then to El Cerrito High School. And so I would start playing varsity, junior varsity football. And then a coach told me, he said, listen, you made the team, but unfortunately, you can't play because your grade failed. And right then and there, instead of me just holding on and building on my grades, I chose to take the negative path to the street life, to negative street life, what really cost me my young years, my teenage years, and eventually in 1987, it cost me my life. So, but to go back, I ended up selling marijuana. For marijuana, I start doing a little petty crime. For petty crime, I started selling crack cocaine in 1985. So here it is in 1985, growing up in Richmond, California. Uh, my dad was gone from a single mother. My dad was at this time, he was on the run. He did in and out the prison system. So now you listen to a cycle, what's been going on for many, many years before me. So with that cycle, I was one of the ones who didn't break the cycle. I just added on to the cycle of negativity, to the cycle of violence, to the cycle of just doing wrong and not taking my education, not taking my time as a value, use it as an asset. I allowed it to become my liability, and I use past experiences as a crutch instead of a stepping stone to get further in life. And so in 1987, I ended up catching a murder. I caught a murder. It's an unfortunate situation where I wish I can change. I hate and regret that it happened, and I ended up doing 30 years and 10 months incarceration from age 17 to age 48. I was finally released. And during that time of incarceration, it wasn't easy. Uh, it was hard, but at the same time, being able to just uh, become a person to get on a path of spirituality, to start praying, to start doing a lot of introspection of who I was, who I want to be as a man. So in 1992, I accepted God in my life and started praying 5 times a day. I accepted Islam. So once I accepted Islam and started praying 5 times a day, uh, no, I wasn't angelic. No, I wasn't floating on the carpet, anything like that. But I noticed how my thinking began to change. And in order for anyone to change themselves or to change a path of society from negative to positive, it begins with a thought. So with a positive thought of myself, that who I wanted to be, because I was someone who didn't have any hope. We see kids out here today, they don't have any hope. I was someone who didn't receive hugs all the time. Waking up, going to school, I didn't receive I love you, I hope you have a nice day, come back home, love, sitting at dinner tables and eating it. I go to my room, my mom go to her room or wherever. And those are just, I know we have our hours, so I want to just, kind of breeze through it. But I know we'll have many opportunities after this. And so I would like to say this, that during my time of incarceration, once I start studying, once I start reading, once I start understanding who I was as a man and as a human being, that my life really started getting on a positive path. And so when I created Motivated to Help Others in 2012, it started from a Relay for Life cancer walk. was introduced inside the prisons, and Folsom, well as San Quentin, were one of the first two institutions to have it. And so my grandmother, rest in peace, her name is Darcy Harper, which is Kalila's grandma. Uh, she passed of cancer, but the spirit of motivated to help others. She was someone who always, up until the day, almost to the day she died. She died at age, I believe, 91 in 2009. And so she was always giving. She was always loving. She was always had a care and a joyous spirit and personality. And I watched her, as I was coming up, just giving to people, doing for people. And I said, and I told myself, that's what I wanted to do. Just be able to give to people, help people in need. It didn't matter what race, color, nationality they were. And here today we have what's called M2H, Motivate to Help Others. And so myself, my fiance Keisha, we put it together. We've been striving to do the right thing. We had a sleeping bag drive, was a hygiene drive last year, which we gave to the homeless, to the needy. We still do things to this day. So it's just building, is growing. I talk to the kids in Richmond, wherever they may be, Richmond, Vallejo, which we had our fitness programs at, wherever it may be, get up on the job site. If I just see youngsters just walking around going through certain things, I just try to walk up to them, see how they doing, how their day going, and let them know that I'm someone that cares. And one of the stigmas that's been perpetuated amongst our youth of today is that they don't care about anything, which is wrong. The youth do care. They care, but the thing about their care, their love, and their self-destructive attitude is what I can relate to, because it's like this here. They all need an arm wrapped around them just to show that someone cared for them, because they have voices was unheard. They have tears of pain and sorrow, what they didn't grew up with from 5, 6, 7 years old to their teenage years, but they don't have anyone to talk with, anyone who can share their sentiments. And so they shut down. And I was one of those kids. So I understand. And so in brief, I want to just leave with that and let Neil Gang chime in.
Yeah, I think your story is one that's very inspirational. Number one, I've heard it before, and I think there's some people on now that that you've done podcasts with, and they do a great job. And it's really, really interesting to hear where people walk and make sure that you understand where people are coming from. And that's what we try and teach police officers now. You
Yes.
can't just come at them with the perception of your own. You have to walk in their shoes and understand where people are coming from.
You
So
have to.
I want to bring you back, LeJohn. So when you were a young kid and you said you had absent, your father wasn't around, do you feel at any time when going through school, if you had a good relationship with maybe a school resource officer or somebody, maybe a community outreach officer in your community, do you think at all that would have helped your relationship and maybe help guide you in a different path? Or have you ever given much thought to that at all?
I never gave much thought to it, but when you gave me the question, I asked myself, I said, well, looking at these times and going back, okay, in elementary school, which is grade school, or junior high school and high school, we have what was called truant officers. And as I can remember, that they didn't try to relate to us. It was always, hey, get to class, or you going to detention. So when you are faced with that type of dialogue, immediately, instead of say, hey, what's going on? How your day is going? Anything I can help you with? How is it going in your household? How is your mom doing? How is your dad doing? Now, if those type of conversations were articulated, then I believe things may have changed. Yes, because as I said earlier, everyone need positive communication. We need positive understanding. And I was one of those kids. If someone wasn't somewhat showing any type of care or hey, understanding what's going on with you, I would just, I don't want to hear what you're talking about because you don't understand where I come from. And that's the thing of today, is being able to relate and understand where each other's coming from, what each other is dealing with.
Well, I think it's all about relationships, right? Regardless of where you
Yes,
come from, as long as you
right,
come together and understand that the main
exactly.
is building relationships. That's something that is so important, and particularly now, and imperative moving forward, that police officers understand the communities in which they're working for.
Very, very
And it's
relationship.
a different concept than it was, 5, 10 years ago, because
I
we
agree.
really work and we exist for the community in which we work. So it's so important to lend ears and understand, and not just listen, but actually hear what people are saying, and what kind of policing they need in their communities.
I agree. It's important to have positive relationships, especially with law enforcement, and with, and despite everything what's going on today, because you still have children, even myself, because the news and television, they play big parts. Everything was going on, and so when you're dealing with education, we're dealing with history. It always starts from the top down. It never starts from the bottom up. And so when we're looking at a society, a systematic injustices of what's going on, so kids are not dumb. They are not naive to say, "Hey, this is not just happening somewhere over there, but it also can happen to me." So immediately, because it's also playing on the psyche, especially a mind that haven't been fully developed, because the mind is like a tape recorder. It's going to take, the subconscious mind is going to take, it's going to be fed and take everything in, instead of just really understanding the logic of a situation. And so when you have kids and teenagers seeing a lot of things what's going on, it could be systematic racism, systematic oppression, whatever it may be, offset, they're going to have a negative opinion of what's going on. And that's why it's important to have relationships. When we see law enforcement can say, "Hey," just say, just take the Breonna Taylor situation. We understand that. If someone can just say, "Hey, this happened, this was wrong," and then in punishment need to go in this situation based on what's justice. Because kids understand that they're being taught what's right and what's wrong in school, was in household, or it's just on these street corners. So kids know. And so in regards to relationships, when we have law enforcement, when we have people that work who could just, or any type of platform where education, where lessons need to be learned and understood, not just taught, but understood, then I believe we can make a good breakthrough with the people of the community, and they can feel refreshed and have a reaffirmation that I can come outside without looking upon law enforcement a certain way, or without them looking at me a certain way, or feel I'm scared to get pulled over for a ticket or anything like that. So, "Here, officer, here's my ID. Okay, you speeding, you was going excess amount of miles. Okay, have a nice day." Instead of just say, "Hey, look what's going on." And don't get me wrong, I know every officer, everyone in law enforcement is not that way. But if the checks and balances is not there, then when you're putting band-aids over the situations, over the problems.
So let's talk a little bit about, obviously you said that in the 80s, you're growing up in Richmond and you're a child.
Yes.
Compare the thoughts and your perception of law enforcement then with the relationship of the youth to the youth that you're dealing with today in 2020. And because my assumption is that I don't think the perception has changed much in 20 something years. And
No, it's not.
can you share a little bit about that? Because I
Yes.
really do believe that we even, police officers are just human beings, right? We're still part of communities.
Absolutely.
This is just a
Yes,
badge
sir.
that we wear for, this is what we do. This is what we do, not who we are. And I think that we're so much more alike than we are different. But I think that it just creates so much barrier with history and everything else like that. So I think it's important to share, what your thoughts were in 80s with the relationship with the police and the youth, and then with the youth that you're using today, that you mentor today, and what their perceptions are, and how maybe we can work together to change perceptions.
Okay. From the 80s to now, basically, I just say from age 15 to age 17, when I was heavily involved in selling drugs. So immediately, if I saw a police officer, I was always going to have a negative thought about him, her, not just because of what they were doing. They could not be doing anything but what I was doing. So what I was doing, it was automatically I'm for the run, I'm for the be nervous, whatever was going on. But if I was doing the right thing, then I didn't have any issues with law enforcement. But it was still permeated through my mind what I heard about law enforcement. Because growing up at age of 13, 14 years old, if you can remember, Richmond had what was called the Gray Boys or the Cowboys, right? So everyone's familiar with that. So here I am as a teenager or a kid growing up, even though it was somewhat going away, but the thought, if I was an adult, man, watch out, don't go to Gray Boys. So if I'm hearing about the Gray Boys or the Cowboys, I knew what they stood for then. So even though the uniforms or the people may have changed, in my mind, they still could be a Gray Boy. So don't get caught by yourself with law enforcement. Don't be caught after dark because this might happen to you. So that was the stigma. And today, the youth still feel the same way. They don't know anything about the Gray Boys, but they hear about what's going on with law enforcement now 5, 6, 7 years ago. And so when the communities are not able to come together with law enforcement, with city council, and say, hey, this is what's going on, the kids don't have anything. And this is what would help kids today. I can tell you this here. If these kids have community centers, if they had community outreach, if they have programs to go to from school, on the weekends, if they had basketball courts, playgrounds, places they can go back and play baseball, things of that nature, what I was able to do, then I believe the relationships amongst the youth and the community will be a lot better. Because now the kids don't have anything to do. I talk to them all the time. It's either I'm gonna sell drugs, cut school because I'm broke. My mother and father don't have any money. I have a broken home. We don't have anything. I want to eat. And so when the lure of jewelry, money, pretty women, cars are perpetuated, not just in TV, videos and in front of them, and they see their friends having certain things and they got some rundown tennis shoes or rundown clothes, that nature, they're going to try to find a way to get that just to help boost or increase their self-esteem. And so then we have the crime, what goes up, because when a person is hungry, when a lion is hungry, he gonna find wherever the food is at. And that's what we see not just in Pinole, Richmond, Los Angeles, Oakland, but throughout all the societies of the world. And that's how it is. And it takes a community, of people with good understanding, sound judgment to build that village from the ground up. And that's what we have to do. I don't care if you're black, brown, purple, pink, whatever color you are, everyone who have these resources, we have to start back pouring our resources into the community, into the households for these children coming up. And that's what these children need. And that's from the 80s all the way to 2020. It's the resources. When I came home, we had a community center we used to go to called the Teen Center. And so the Teen Center. So I drove by there, I looked, I said, what happened to the teen? It was torn down. And that's in the neighborhood I grew up in. So one of the parks where we used to go to, that was gone. They put houses there. So you have this here. So if you have a YMCA was in Hilltop, so where the kids are going to play at. If you have another park with somewhere else and they used for soccer, what used to be used for baseball and other things of that nature, and then you have different neighborhoods say, okay, I can't go here because of this. I can't go down here because of this situation. Then you have the so-called different groups or gangs, was also are a hindrance for our youth to go different places. So it goes back to resources. It goes back to good community response. And that's another thing. We need sound, solid community response. We can't just look down on our children, look down on these teens and say, hey, they bad, they doing this and doing that. We have to understand why they feel that way. How can we grab one? If we have 5 teens But if we only can grab one, then we doing a good job. And then the one who we want to grab the one who got the biggest voice. Because if you grab the one who got the biggest voice, 9 times out of 10, those four gonna gravitate. If the four don't, you grab one more, and then here we go, a positive cycle of change.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I know here in Pinole, and I can't say for law enforcement around the nation, but one thing
Yes,
we stress is that every single contact you go on is important
it
because
is.
change starts with each contact. It doesn't just happen revolutionary, right? It's a
It doesn't.
evolutionary change, but every contact we go on, it has to be a quality contact. And you have to understand that you're building relationships from the minute you get on scene with that person. And even if it
Yes.
is a person that, may eventually need to go to jail, but have that
Hmm.
positive impact in your life. And before they go out on the street here, we encourage them, go out, at least impact somebody positively, one person a day. And by the time you end your career 20, 25, 30 years later, think of all the positive impact that you're going to make. So that's what we do here. We try and encourage that. And, obviously with the society, the civil unrest, unrest and all that, it's concerning because we're trying so hard to do all these good things, but I don't think people understand that it just doesn't happen overnight. You're not going to
Yeah,
respect me just because I'm wearing a uniform. I want you to respect me for the job I have to do with the person who I am, not just because I'm wearing a badge. And I think that works both ways. I think there's a two-way street there.
I agree because it's about human behavior and mutual respect. And so just say I'm in Pinole, I'm at a store. I'm at Jamba Juice. Just take Jamba Juice. Okay. I'm an officer. I walk inside Jamba Juice. I see 5 youths up in there. How you guys doing? How your day? You enjoying Jamba Juice? You guys play sports? Now they say, okay, he's talking different. Instead of just going there looking like this here and then just leave. That's the difference.
Right.
Because yesterday I saw 3 Hispanic youth, right? And I never saw them a day in my life. I was conducting my fitness program at the Richmond Marina yesterday. I saw them with their bikes. They probably was doing what they were doing. So what I did, I walked up. I had another little guy with me, teaching him little basketball drills. I walk up to him. They saw me, but when they looked at me, they didn't see an aggressive stance. They saw, hey, how you guys doing? With a smile. How your day going? Oh, it's going good, OG. See, that's the first thing they said. So it's all about the communication and the relationship, as well as the approach, and that's what they need. Because it's even goes back when I was incarcerated. Initially, Bloods, Crips, Southsiders was gang members could never be around each other. So I was telling the world this. That's a lie. Because when you're inside there, you will be in an environment where everyone is blended in, a work environment. How you doing? How you doing, Jose? How you doing, Jeff? How you doing, Mike? And and you're like, wow, okay, this guy, he's human just like I am. He wants the same piece of respect just like I do. Like on here right now, I have an old roommate who's logged in. He's from Sacramento, an ex-Crip. I have another guy out here right now. He's from South Central Los Angeles, as Crip, and we're real close to this day. And I'm from the Bay Area. So initially, people wouldn't even think like that, and that's from everywhere. So it's all about building relationships. What you
Yeah.
said, building relationships, but growing off those relationships and letting people know that, hey, change is possible, and this is why we need to change. And a lot of times, kids in just a society don't understand true insight of self. And true insight of self is to really being able to dig inside ourselves and to understand who I am, where I come from, and where I want to go in life. And once we can figure that out, we can help others.
Yeah, I think you make some good points, and one of the biggest impacts of my career, and I've been in law enforcement over 32 years now, was my time spent as a school resource officer in South Florida. And
Yes.
you talk about an environment where your badge and your power means nothing because you don't get people to do anything you need them to do without relationships. Going to a high school in South Florida. They don't care that you're an officer. They don't care that you have a badge. They don't care that you can arrest them. It's all about building relationships and getting to know who these people are, not just who you think they may be. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so they would come to me and they come to me and share stories with me. And never would you expect an officer to be able to talk to a bunch of, at that time, gang members and actually sit down and have lunch with them and sit at a table with them and share stories and just understand where they're coming from and why they're making the choices that they're making.
Right.
I'll give you a little story. There was a small gang that started down in South Florida, and one of the kids was getting suspended all the time. And he'd come into my office and he goes, "Man, I just can't believe I got suspended again." And I go, "Well, look what you're doing. Look at your life choices." And then I went to talk to him, and I really got deep with him and found out what's going on. And he was coming from a broken family, and he was really upset because Thanksgiving was coming, and he had no way of getting a turkey and having Thanksgiving. Well, that afternoon, while he was in class, I ran out to the store and I picked up a 20-pound turkey for him and really the entire gang. And and I gave him that, and I gave him some, everything that you could have a Thanksgiving meal to have. And they said, finally, somebody, not all the teachers, not any other officers have ever treated us like you were human beings. Thank you so much. Well, I developed a relationship with that individual, and years later, he was at his house, and he wanted to take his own life, and he kept saying, "I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm not coming out. You can do whatever you want to do to me, but I'm not talking until you get Officer Gang here." And then at that time, I got called in the middle of the night and went out and actually sat there and spoke to him and had a conversation with him, and he was fine. And unfortunately, years later, he did have an accidental overdose and passed away, but I learned a lot from that. Yes. And then, even to this day, we do a Thanksgiving turkey giveaway. And it just brings me back to understanding that people, regardless of where they come from, what color they are, what they believe in, they're human beings that have, and we all have intrinsically have the same needs. And this guy just wanted to have someone to like him. He just wanted someone to be a friend. And you know what? To this day, I still have people reaching out to me on social media that were involved in that type of lifestyle. In fact, after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting that occurred a couple of years ago down in South Florida, Parkland. Yeah. I had a bunch of people reaching out to me, actually calling my police department going, "Hey, we just wanted to thank your chief for what he did to us 20 years ago and what he did for us." And then it warmed my heart. And I always say, I wish every single officer could have a couple of years in the school, because it really changes your perspectives and realize that you have to change. And my thing is, how would you do this job if you didn't have a badge and you didn't have a gun? Because you change how your perspectives are and you deal with things differently, because you have a whole second set of eyes. You can't rely on your power or authority to help people out and make change. And that really is what you learned in the school. So I like to bring in Natasha here. Natasha's our community outreach officer.
Yes. Before you go into, I want to add one thing to that, what you just said.
Yeah, go ahead.
About the gang culture. One thing what people don't understand is that when we turn to a gang is really becomes our second family. So we go seek the love, the comfort that we think our friends in the streets have, to wrap their arms around us. Because every time we go meet and greet, we either shake hands and we give each other a hug. The same hugs that we wanted from inside the home. A lot of times we didn't get those hugs. And that's some of the misconceptions what people don't have. They think we just leave home and say, "I'm going to go join a gang or go do wrong." No, we go somewhere where we feel we have love and respect and some type, crazy it may sound, sense of dignity, and honor amongst ourselves. We go to school, we laugh, we joke, we play, we go talk to girls, whatever we may do. If we do some things wrong, we know we have each other, and that's where we felt our love at. And then that's how we grow. So now to flip it, let's go back and create and build upon the love and the respect and the honor we're supposed to have inside these homes. A lot of homes, just say right now, we have all this EDD stuff going on. So people getting this money, doing these scams, all type of stuff to get some money, some shoes and things what they never had. So I know Natasha, here we go. And so those resources we have with people just giving away and to places don't even need to go, we need to put those same resources and have accountability and fund this money through the families and through the kids coming up, and grab people like myself and many others who can relate to the kids, who can relate to the youth, and say, we're going to put you guys in a facility. We're going to build a building for you guys instead of just coming over here with some oil or some gas what's going to kill us slow. And say, okay, we're going to build these community centers and we want you guys to run them. Because who's best to run these community centers than us, who the kids can trust? Because they tell me all the time, you come from where we come from, you understand us, and we can talk to you better. We can talk to anyone. I just want to just leave it on that note.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yeah, it's so interesting sitting here and listening to your story, because you make total sense. It's funny because it brings you back when we just talked about the schools for a moment. But I remember that the administrators of the school actually contacted my supervisor, and they wanted me out of the school because, and you don't understand, this officer is going around and they're hugging him and they're talking to him, and these are people we're suspending that are fighting. These are gang members, and we don't really appreciate your officer having them in his office and laughing with them, and they just didn't get it.
They don't get it. But the kids need that. They need to be able to laugh. The opposite of joy is pain.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm going to transition over to Natasha for a moment, and I know she has some experiences even living in our community. I shared before we went live that Natasha is a great example of an employee that I look for in this organization. One, she grew up in the organization. She was an explorer here, but she grew up in Pinole. She understands the community, and she actually went to Pinole Valley High School. So it's somebody who I really respect, and really, really grateful for having her as part of our organization. So Natasha, I'm going to give you some time to speak here.
Hi, everyone. So just a quick brief background about myself. I did grow up in Pinole. My early childhood was spent in Richmond. So, we moved back and forth all over Richmond. So, LeJean, I know a couple of places that you were speaking about. And then my father actually wanted to get us out of the area that we were in, so that, I have 6 other brothers and sisters. He wanted a better future for us, and he realized that he had to pull us from Richmond and put us in Pinole, which was not that far away, only 10 minutes away, but it was a better environment for us to grow up in, so that we can have a better chance at being successful. And because of the environment that we were in, we were kind of hindered. We didn't have the resources, like you were saying, LeJean, in Richmond that we had in Pinole. Like, I would have never been a Pinole Police Explorer, and I became an explorer at the age of 13. And I aged out at 20 and a half. I'm 27 now. I would have never had that opportunity if I didn't move to Pinole. So I feel that I guess I have to give it up to my dad, because my dad is the one that had the strong head on his shoulders to get us out of there, and to make sure that we knew that we were going to be good people, I guess. And when I say good people, I'm not saying that, people from Richmond are bad, but I mean, just have a stronger head on our shoulders, and to know, what, to see that we coming from Richmond, and to see what's going on in Richmond, to know that my dad made the sacrifice and that we're doing better. I hope that came out clear. But just being a part of the Explorer program, I was kind of viewed differently. Growing up in Pinole Valley High, I was the lady cop, even though I wasn't a cop. I was the cop. Oh, don't talk to her. She goes and hangs out with the police officers. Oh, you don't want to be friends with her. Like, she's a snitch. So even though that was happening at school, I still had, plenty of friends, but I was viewed differently. And a lot of people didn't like cops because of how they were either raised or whatever experiences they had from that. Seeing it from the inside out, I realized that, it's either, like I said, either what they were taught, from their parents, because of their experiences, or the experiences they had one-on-one. And the kids that were saying that, these kids, they didn't really live in Pinole. These kids were living in Richmond or living in another town, and, they were going to Pinole that were saying that. So the kids that they were also hanging out with, they were kind of like, oh yeah, if you don't like cops, I don't like cops too, or whatever it may have been. And so I realized at that young age that I wanted to be the change. I remember, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the trail down here that goes down to the shore and the water. But I remember running with a friend who is a deacon at a church in Richmond. And we were talking as we were running, and he wanted to know why I was, an explorer, why I wanted to be a police officer, why I wanted to be in law enforcement. He was like, I know your background. I know, where you came from. I know your family, because I have family members that don't like police officers, and not all of them know what I do because I've cut myself out from them. I surround myself with people with love and all of that, that are motivating. And so those people don't know. So he wanted to know, what is this? Why do you want to do that? And I said, well, I want to be the change. I want people to see that it starts from within. If you want to change something, you have to put yourself there. You have to be that change and put yourself in that environment to change it. You can't just demand change, but you're not doing nothing. You can, you're just saying there, okay, yep, that needs to get changed. But what are you doing to change? So that's what I've told him. And he, from that experience in that run that we did, he talks about it all the time still. And that really changed his perception of law enforcement. And now, being in the position that I am in now, I work in the community outreach unit, and I love it. I love engaging with our community. And we, even though Panola is small, there are different parts of the community. They're not all the same. There's different areas, different backgrounds. So I interact with everyone that I can. And it's nice to connect with those that have a similar background as me. And it's nice to just hear stories from those that don't, and to hear their side, and to listen to what they want changed or whatever it may be. And we have several community outreach events that allow us as a department to engage with our community and to build partnerships. And so that's why, chalk it up to Chief Gang here for even wanting to implement those programs and wanting to start that off. And from that, I see that other departments are starting to wanting to engage more in their communities as well. So that was a little bit about me.
Thanks, Natasha. I appreciate you adding some insight to your experiences as part of our organization, and not just that, but being growing up in the communities of Richmond and Panola. So that's important. Lejean, did you have anything to say, Natasha?
Yes, I really understand Natasha when she said, people looked upon her differently as a snitch because she became in law enforcement and based on her family's background. My dear cousin, Kalala Harper, rest in peace, she became a Richmond police officer, and so she had family, myself, that we didn't really look down upon law enforcement, but people saw her as someone coming up like, wow, here you are, a police officer, but her personality, her understanding of the community, what she stood for, even though she started from a regular B cop to detective role, the way she carried herself, the way she interacted with the community, she had the utmost respect. Because she didn't die in a line of duty. She died coming from at a memorial, from a so-called estranged lover, boyfriend, or whoever he was. And so even when she went on raids, even when she pulled people over, how you doing, Miss Harper? She would come see me when I was incarcerated with her badge on and everything. She said, because I can't be in, but she would come visit me, almost up until a few years before she passed, and telling me about her experiences as a police officer. And the first thing I told her, stay doing what you're doing, because she's implementing change. She wanted to change a society where she grew up in, to help people go from bad to good, or from left to right. And so I understand, where Tasha was coming from with that. So I want to just add that, and it's needed. Shoot, if I could have went into law enforcement instead of selling drugs and committing murder, I would have done it too. If it's going to take me to help people to be sentiment and to understand people and want to build relationships and friendships and have good change for my people and for people as a whole, yes, I would. because it's needed.
I agree. Yeah, it's such a tragic story, and we could talk for hours just about her story and what exactly Khadijah's doing, and your whole family, your family is rock stars, and what you're doing to change perceptions, and also just change and working with our communities, the youth in the community. So I don't know if but we have a very good partnership with Kay Angel and Khadijah and what
Yes.
she's doing, and we often have her as part of our outreach efforts because we think that's important, and really, really supportive of what she's doing, and of course, really honoring her sister, and
Yes, she's doing a good job. Yes.
so one thing I wanted to ask you, and just a little bit about me. So I go around the country and speak nationally on officer wellness, about police suicides and this and that. But one of the things that I talk to the audience about, I ask them, when you first hear the word police officer and you're not in law enforcement, what's the first thing you think of? What's the first thing you think of? And you know what? And the word that usually comes up, and I don't want to put you on the spot, is fear, right? Fear. It's unfortunate, but that's the number one thing around the country when you talk to people, police officers. The first thing they think about is fear. What they don't ever think about is human being. That's not the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah,
Like, we get so caught up in the fact that this is who we are, as opposed to this is what we do for a living. And that we need to change that. And really, for any real change to occur is for that to change.
because
So,
well, we will see and hear fear and hear police spoken of in a negative light because it's what people see. We can go off of what we see. We don't see too much of the good police, we don't see a lot of neo gangs. We see neo gang right now. The people need more chief neo gangs instead of officers who are doing this and doing that. The rogue officers. And so when you look at, like myself, so when you look at Fox News, right? And when you look at Fox News and other different news organizations that's perpetuating the wrong or the indifferences based on the injustices what's going on in a society as a whole, then it's bigger. So it's bigger than one avenue or one corner was doing good. So we just see the big things was going on, but also in these crevices in the neighborhoods or the urban communities, it's more than that was going on, was not being spoken about. And so that's why you hear a whole lot. It's a lot of youth or teens or people, different races, black and brown, that's getting hit upside the head, pulled over, scared of law enforcement. Was not being televised, was not being talked about. So you hear those people coming out saying with the fear, police fear. And that's the difference.
Yeah, and I could tell you that no one in law enforcement is frustrated or hates a bad cop than the ones that have been doing good and try and do good. And it's so frustrating. And we'll have a secondary be the change with you, and we'll talk about the whole George Floyd thing and all the things that are going around in our country. And really, this movement's not about George Floyd. It's about everything. That just happened to be the tinderbox to set it all off. But
yes,
nobody was more frustrated than officers that are out there every day trying to build relationships, because what they did is they set us back years and years and years for all the good work that some of us have been trying to do with our communities. But
absolutely,
again, I could tell you just on a personal note, I don't know if I ever shared this with anybody, but when I saw that, I actually had a tear in my eye. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, get off his neck. I cannot believe what I'm watching. And
right.
So just like we don't want to label all fill in the blanks or this way, it's the same thing for law enforcement. Not
right,
all
Right, because I can relate. I remember I was probably like 16 years old. I was at a store, and so with a couple of friends of mine, and I saw some undercover police about the raid, the neighborhood where I grew up at, where I used to sell drugs in. And so, but before all the cars went to that area to where the cars came where I was at. Didn't say anything. They just, no, they did say, said, oh, what you looking at? I didn't say anything. Well, he did, big guy. Grabbed me by my neck, threw me face down on the trunk of my car. I'm 15 years old, 15, 16 years old. Didn't say anything. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just watching them about to do their job. And so I understand. So, and that was 1985, 1986. On a small, that's just on a small level. So we see things like that, or we hear about, maybe we don't hear about things like that was happening every day, 100 times a day, was not being televised, was not being spoken about. And so when you say, what's the first thing come to people's mind is fear. Yeah, fear might be one. They'll go to police again. They'll go another one. I hope they don't come over here. You know, I didn't do nothing. So all those different dialogues start taking place. And then you might have some, Neil Gang might put, oh, there go Chief Neil Gang, he all right. But someone else might pull up and say, man, don't even say nothing to that officer. He ain't good. He ain't cool, because we know his background. And that's the thing about interrelationships.
Yeah, I think
They have to be built.
there's so much history we need to overcome. There's so much
Yes.
change that needs to happen in our profession. And the first thing is in anything where you're trying to change is what? Admitting there's a problem, number one, right? Because you
True.
can't address it until you admit there's a problem. Well, we all know there's a problem and we need to do things to change it. And I think what do you have to do to change it is you have to meet people in the communities and then build relationships to find out
Right.
what change and good change can come from all these negative things that happen. Otherwise, these are just tragedies, right? And we have a hard time sitting here going, okay, this is just a tragic event, because
Right.
we need to change tragedy and turn it into hope. And I think that's why we decided that this program was a great avenue to start. Now, do I expect society to change because LaJean and I had a conversation today? No, but the same way we eat an elephant, right? What do? One bite at a time.
One bite at a
Right?
time.
We take one relationship, and when we build relationships one at a time, hopefully, our efforts will at least change for the good. And
Right. And
that's
so, right.
that's all I could ask, right?
So the question to be now, the question to be, okay, this is over in a few minutes. So what will we do between now and the next conference or meeting? What will we try to put into play for the youth in the communities of Pinole, Richmond, Terry Hills, Hercules, or wherever, because all part of Constitution County, so it can come together and spread out. So that's going to be the key. Could we build more community centers, more basketball courts? We need activities. We need football activities. We need baseball activities. We need softball activities. We need things for these children to do, for these kids to do. They have to do something instead of just looking at a computer all day and picking up a whole lot of weight. Yeah, because that becomes stressful. And then, they might don't get killed, something happens in the street, but just being in home becomes stressful. They creating bad diets and things of that nature.
Well, I think that, obviously that's going to be a much larger conversation, but I could tell you,
Yes,
I can tell you right now that the number one thing that I would like to do, and of course it'd have to be, at your blessing, is I'd like to come out to where you're meeting with the youth and, maybe spend 15, 20 minutes just talking to the kids one-on-one and
Absolutely.
explain who we are. I know that your program's in Richmond, but the bottom line is that there's no barriers between Richmond and Pinole, right?
It's not. It's
artificial boundaries.
It's all the same. It's all the same.
Right. So I think that at least from this, I think I would love an opportunity to come out and spend time with the youth and talk to them about what you and I are doing today and what we plan to do together and just build a relationship. So maybe for once they see an officer who's speaking to them, as a person as opposed to an object. And I think that if we could change minds one at a time, then that's all we can ask. And that's what we'll continue to do. And
Yes.
I know we're getting close to time here. There's certainly a saying that I use around the police department, and I think that you probably would buy into this, but if not me, then who, right? So who's going to change? If it's not going to be me, I can't expect someone else to do it. And I think any good leader understands that you need to forge the way, right? And if I can't sit from my police department in my office and expect change to happen if I'm not willing to be the one that's stepped in front of that and being the tip of the spear. And that's why I thought this relationship that you and I have, that we need to bring it out to public and let people know what you and I are doing and what we're talking about, because I think it's so important.
Absolutely. And that's why the Change Project is needed. And let's continue to build, because I know that, as I said earlier, resources are needed. I know I'm just gonna be honest. You know, we said with the things that we I know Pinot have a lot of resources what they can use. So let's dig into those resources. I have some people who will work with me. We can all come out and work with you and Natasha and put something together for these kids.
Absolutely. I think that we'll partner together and we'll come up with some solutions. And I think there's 1 or 2 chats. I'll have Natasha read that, and then I'll give you an opportunity for a final saying, and I'll have a final comment. And then, you know what, we'll plan our next Be the Change with you. And then certainly offline, you and I will talk about coming down and meeting one-on-one with the youth that you're working with.
Okay.
Natasha, did you have somebody, was there a chat that you need to be read?
Yes, there is. This is from James Wilcock. He said, "Thank you for this program. This conversation is needed to bring about change. I'm Lemons XL. May I return to society 66 days ago after 28 years and 10 months. I am part of an organization called Crop Organization. Individually, as an organization, we would like to be of service." So thank you, James. I emailed you my email. I'll go ahead and post my email in the comment box if anyone else would like to be a part of this, or have anything else they'd like to say, or just anything else you'd like to know. I'll go ahead and post my email here.
Good.
Okay.
LaJean, I'm going to give you a few minutes to say a closing statement if you'd like. And then, again, I promise you we'll have part 2 with LaJean coming up soon.
Yes. I thank Neil. I thank Natasha. I thank all the participants who took some time out their morning to listen to what's going on for the beginning of some things of a discussion that I know can be real big. And I just want everyone to know that it's not the youth or the teenagers that are bad. They're not bad. They just need the proper guidance and the proper people to gather around them, to hold them, to love them, and to create positive avenues for them to be guided and to be assisted to do the right thing. I want to add that because a lot of youth, they don't really understand what's going on as a whole in the society, but they understand those who understand them. And it's many of us who understand the youth because once upon a time we were them. And we want to try to stop them or prevent them from going down the wrong path that we did. And I know that, I'm gonna say it again, I know a lot of guys out here in Richmond, Los Angeles, Sacramento, and all different parts who are willing and ready to come together and support Be the Change Project because they have a lot to offer. And women, so it won't just be myself and Neil Gang. It could be a lot of us put together because we can't do it alone. I just want to just add that.
Yeah, LaJean, I think that's a good point. And I'd like to see us build out from here. Certainly, like I said, I'd like to come out to the youth and speak there, but also meeting with some people. I've heard some great podcasts you've been on with some of your partners, and
Yes,
meet with them individually. COVID causes a little bit of a problem with us, a little restrictions, but certainly we could all set up a Zoom and figure out where we go from here.
Mhm.
None of us have all the answers, but the bottom line is if we
True.
don't just sit here and wait for someone else to do it, then we're doing something positive, and that's
put your mask on and come on out.
exactly.
We're not gonna let COVID stop us. We're not gonna do that. No gang, I can't let you get away with that. I'm right here in Richmond. I'm in downtown McDonald right now. You can see behind me, I'm in Kobe's right now in the conference room. They told me come use this conference room, put my mask on. So I'm here. If you want us, listen, you set up a conference room in Pinot, I will bring some guys down there. We can sit down there and talk with you. Talk with Natasha, we can come down there. If you want us to come down there today, we'll be down there. Tomorrow, let me know, and I can call some guys and we'll make our way.
I'll
So
tell
we're
you
not
what,
gonna let COVID be the reason. I can't let you get away with that.
I tell you,
Safeway's still open today. Bucky's still open. Everywhere is open. The freeways are open.
yeah, it was an excuse. We're just saying that we may have to use Zoom, but I'll tell you what, I'll give you one better. You set up the meeting, you get people in that room right where you're at right now.
Okay.
And
You
I'll
know
have
what?
everybody.
I have three. I have two here, and I have three online. I have James Bullock online. I got Keisha Gallen online. I got Mr. Kidd online. I got Dwight online. So I got 4 online right now, and I got other 2 in a room. So we ready.
You tell me, LeJean, where you want it, when you're going to be there, and I'll bring
Okay.
breakfast. I'll bring breakfast to you, and we're going to sit down.
Okay.
And some more
Okay. So we got some work to do. So we finna put it together. But we're gonna knock COVID out the way.
Before we
So we're gonna knock COVID out the way.
before we get out of here, I just want to give a shout out to Khadijah Phillips and everything that she
Yes.
does for the youth of the community. A great partner with us, and her program K Angel is awesome. Your entire family, I met them at an
She's
event.
doing a lot.
What great people! What a group of rock stars, and I've learned a lot just from our interactions and learning from you.
Okay.
So that's great. I have to end up with one thing that is we have to love one another, right? And
We have to. We have to.
we have to be the change. We can't expect change to occur just by us sitting by the wayside and allow someone else to do it.
Brick by brick, one brick at a time. You know, we just continue to come together, stay positive, and I believe we'll make some positive change.
Absolutely. I'll say God bless to you, LeJean. God bless to
God
everybody
bless
who came
everyone.
on board.
Thank you
I
for
look
coming out.
forward to working here and making some change for everybody. Thank
Okay.
you for joining us.
And I will be in contact. All right.
Okay, I'm gonna check out.
Bye.
Straight up.